I grew old quietly. Not with loud celebrations. Not with glittering jewelry or shining cars. I aged with soft mornings, warm teacups, and curtains that faded with the sun. People who passed my little house thought I was just another forgotten grandmother. And I allowed them to think that. What they never knew was that behind my simple life lived a woman who earned $40,000 every month. It sounds like a lie, doesn't it? Even so, I lived like someone who counted coins before buying apples. I wore sweaters longer than I should have, stitched my own curtains, and carried the same old handbag until the zipper gave up. But this was not because I had to. This was because I chose to. My son never knew. Not when he was a little boy with scraped knees and sticky fingers. Not when he grew into a tall, nervous teenager. Not when he became a husband and learned to stand beside another family. I never told him how much money quietly flowed into my accounts, how many papers I had signed, how many investments I managed behind closed doors. Not because I didn't love him, because I loved him more. I wanted him to grow up honest, to respect work, to understand the value of simple things. I didn't want money to soften his spine or build walls between his heart and the world. So I cooked lentil soup even when I could have hired chefs. I mended old coats even when closets full of new ones waited silently in storage. After his father died, the world felt unbearably large. People think money fixes everything. It does not. It doesn't tuck you in at night or warm your hands when grief bites like winter. So I worked. Quietly. Relentlessly. I built a life that looked small but stood on strong foundations. My son grew up believing our life was fragile. He thought every light left on was dangerous. That extra bread was a luxury. That laughter had to be controlled because happiness seemed expensive. And I let him believe those things because I thought hardship would make him gentle. Most nights I watched him sleep and wondered if I was doing the right thing. I sat at the edge of his bed when he was sick. I traced his hair when he had nightmares. I whispered promises he never heard. I will protect you. I will never let the world break you. Yet there was always a quiet fear inside my chest. What kind of man was I raising? Not because of my money, but because of my silence. Years passed like soft footsteps on an old wooden floor. He grew up. He found love. He married a woman from a world louder and brighter than ours. I remember the first time he told me about her family. "They're very well off, Mom," he said carefully, as if he were afraid to bruise the truth. I smiled and said, "That's good." But inside, a strange feeling crept into my chest. Not jealousy. Not fear. Curiosity. Because for the first time in my life, I wondered what kind of world my son had stepped into without me. And I did not yet know that someday that curiosity would turn into a test no mother ever wants to give. The invitation came on a quiet evening, wrapped in my son's soft, careful voice. "Mom," he said, "my wife's parents want to meet you. They've invited us for dinner." For a moment, I simply held the phone and listened to the small sounds of his breath. He sounded older. Not my small boy anymore. A man standing in another world. "I'd like you to come," he added. "It's important." Important. That word lingered in my heart long after we said goodbye. That night I didn't sleep much. I sat by my window and watched the moon climb slowly through the dark sky. Thoughts came and went like quiet waves, but one stayed longer than the rest. What if they think I am nothing? Not because of my money, because of my simplicity. I had met many wealthy people in my quiet career. I had seen smiles that only showed when status matched. I had heard laughter that only rang for equals. And I had learned something valuable long ago. Some people are only kind to those who shine. That was when the idea visited me, not loud, not sudden. Just a soft thought that rested in my chest. Let me go as I am seen. An old woman. A simple mother. A nobody. Let them believe I was ruined by life. Let them believe I had nothing but wrinkles and tired eyes. I wanted to test not their wealth, but their hearts. On the day of the dinner, I stood in front of my wardrobe longer than I ever had in years. Not choosing what to wear, but choosing who to become. I passed over my neat dresses. I ignored the soft pearls resting quietly in their box. I reached for the brown sweater I wore when the house was cold and lonely. The one with loose threads near the cuffs. The one that looked tired. I chose my oldest handbag, the one whose zipper only worked if you smiled kindly at it. I looked at myself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked small. She looked breakable. She looked believable. Before leaving, I cleaned my tiny kitchen and washed my cup, as if I were preparing to come back broken. A strange thought, I know, but a mother's mind is a soft and fragile place. My son arrived to pick me up. When he saw me, his eyes flickered for a second. "Mom, you didn't have to dress so simply," he said gently. I smiled. "I am simple," I answered. On the drive, he talked about their house. "It's very nice," he said. "They care about appearances." I heard the warning hidden in his voice. When we arrived, I saw it immediately. The house stood tall and proud. The kind of home that had never known silence, never known fear. Its walls looked like they were built from confidence. I held my handbag a little tighter. At the door, my son rang the bell. The sound was sharp, clean, final. In that moment, my heart felt strangely calm. Not because I was brave, but because I had made my choice. I was not walking in as a woman who owned properties and accounts and quiet power. I was walking in as a mother who had nothing but love for her son and a test in her heart. I whispered to myself before the door opened, "Let me see who they are before they see who I am." And the door slowly creaked open. The door opened with a soft chime, and suddenly I was inside a home that smelled like money and soundless judgment. The mother-in-law stood there first. Her dress was perfect. Her smile was thin. "Oh, you must be her," she said, looking me over like a package that had arrived dented. "I am," I replied softly. She stepped aside, but her warmth did not. The house was beautiful in the way cold palaces are beautiful. Shiny, spotless, and distant. Nothing out of place. Nothing truly alive. The father-in-law nodded from the living room without rising from his chair. A short, polite nod, as if lifting his head any higher would cost him something. They led me to the dining table. It looked like something out of a silent dream. Tall candles, fragile crystal glasses, silverware that reflected every doubt in my old eyes. The food looked like art designed to never be touched. They began to talk almost immediately. About their trips. About their cars. About how expensive the world had become. And I sat there, hands folded, pretending not to notice how quickly they looked away from me. At first, the cruelty was quiet. Subtle. Like a breeze that slowly becomes a storm. "So," the mother-in-law asked, lifting her glass, "where do you live?" "A small house," I answered. "Oh," she said and smiled. "That must be manageable." Manageable. Like a problem solved too easily. They asked questions not because they cared, but because they wanted to measure the distance between us. Every answer I gave built their confidence. Then came the laughter. Not loud laughter. That kind of soft laugh people make when they think they are better than someone else. They talked about simple neighborhoods, about people who never left their comfort zones, about old-fashioned ways of living. Each word pressed gently against my chest. And my son, he said nothing. He looked down. He adjusted his cutlery. He swallowed silence. I wanted to reach across the table and hold his hand. I wanted to remind him of the nights I held his when thunder frightened him. But I stayed still. I had chosen this. The worst moment came quietly. The mother-in-law leaned forward slightly, her voice wrapped in silk. "And how much did your house cost?" she asked. The table went silent. They were not curious. They were calculating. I felt something inside me tremble. Not with anger but with heartbreak. "My home," I said softly, "is very humble." Her lips curved. Not kindly. Satisfied. The father-in-law nodded as if he had solved a puzzle. "Good," he said simply. "Simple living builds character." And still my son said nothing. I realized then that this was not just a test of them. It was a test of him too. The food tasted like dust. The air felt heavy. But I smiled. I thanked them. I complimented the meal. I kept my voice gentle and my eyes soft. When the dinner ended, they barely hugged me goodbye. The mother-in-law fixed my collar like you fix a wrinkle on a curtain, without care. As I stepped out into the night air, I felt the cold touch my face. And that was when I understood something clearly for the first time. People don't always hurt you by shouting. Sometimes they hurt you by treating you like you are smaller than air. That night, sitting in the back seat of my son's car, watching city lights blur like tears I refused to shed, I did not feel rage. I felt clarity, and clarity I learned is far more dangerous than anger. I did not wake up angry. That surprised me most. After that dinner, I expected to feel rage burning through my tired bones. I expected tears, shaking hands, bitter thoughts. But instead I felt calm. A calm that comes after a storm has already destroyed what needed to fall. I made tea. I watered my small plants. I folded my blankets with slow, steady hands. And while doing these simple things, a decision grew quietly inside my heart. Not revenge with fire. Not revenge with shouting. But a lesson. A lesson wrapped in kindness. I called my son. Invite them to dinner, I said gently. He hesitated. Are you sure, Mom? I am, I replied. We did not go to a restaurant. We did not go to a fancy hall. I invited them to my small home. I kept the humble curtains on the windows. I left the old rug on the floor. I let them believe they were stepping into the same small broken world they had already measured. They arrived with polite smiles. I welcomed them warmly. And then I opened the doors. Not physical doors but hidden ones. The plain walls softly opened into a private dining space I had kept unseen. Lights warmed the room. A trained chef stepped forward quietly. The table was dressed in silver and porcelain so fine it looked unreal. Their eyes widened. Their lips parted. Their confidence fell like fragile glass. I invited them to sit. And then I brought the truth. A simple folder. Thin. Quiet. Inside were copies of my documents. Property deeds. Investment statements. Bank records. At the top, in clean black numbers. Monthly income. $40,000. The room lost its breath. My son stared at the paper as if the world had moved under his feet. The mother-in-law's hand trembled slightly. The father-in-law shifted in his chair, as if searching for a place to hide. I did not raise my voice. I did not smile cruelly. I spoke softly, the way old women speak when the truth is heavy. I wanted to see how you treat someone you believe is poor. Silence surrounded us. I looked at them with eyes that had seen loss, love, hunger, and patience. Now you have met two versions of me, I continued. The woman you dismissed, and the woman you suddenly respect. They tried to apologize. The words fell over each other like frightened children. I lifted my hand gently. This was not done to shame you, I said. Then I turned to my son. He looked broken. Not by money, but by understanding. This was for you, I told him. So you would know that silence can sometimes be louder than disrespect. His eyes filled. And finally he looked at me the way he did when he was a child. Not as a weak woman, but as his mother. I served them tea. Not out of pride. Not out of victory. Out of grace. That was my revenge. Not bitterness, but dignity. Now I sit in my simple room again. The same little curtains move with the air. The same old kettle sings softly. The same chair holds my tired bones. I still live simply. I still dress quietly. Because I never wanted wealth. I wanted truth. And I learned something that day. The softest kind of revenge is letting people see how wrong they were without ever lowering yourself. And that is the kind of power no money can buy.